First of all, thanks for coming. Thanks for being here. I know it's late on Saturday and there's lots to do in the next few hours, so I'm honored that you guys are here. So thanks for coming. For those of you that don't know about the story, I just want to tell you briefly sort of how this whole thing started. We moved to Uganda as a family almost 7 years ago, a little over 6 years ago. So we've been there. For us, that was kind of a step of faith. We felt like that was where God was telling us to go, and there was some really cool stuff there. But every time I tell this story, it changes a bit because the dynamics of working there start to reveal different things. And recently, what's been popping up has been what it was like to work with those kids that first year. I focused an awful lot on computer stuff, but really it was about the kids. And these are my kids. They're not the Ugandan kids, but these are the Ugandan kids. And they, man, they're spark plugs. They just like are full of energy. You come into the classroom and, you know, it's kind of embarrassing because when you walk into a classroom as a Mzungu, as a white person, a visitor, they stop everything and like they have to greet you and they have to sing you a song. And it's kind of like sometimes you just kind of want to slip in the back and like, you know, check it out and see what's going on. You can't do that. And I don't think it's so much a mandate from the teachers as it's just over time they realize that the kids would turn around and smile and wave at you and laugh no matter what. So they're just like, okay, we're just going to go with this and you're going to get an official greeting. So these kids absolutely captured me when I was over there. And this statistic just absolutely, it floored me. You know, 57 million children don't have access to primary education. So it's no wonder that later in life, they're struggling. I mean, it's as simple as that. So basically what we did when we were going over there is, used my tech skills and donations from the community. And we installed a computer lab. This was our first computer lab that we installed. And, you can just see the kids' reaction to this was awesome. I mean, we didn't have many computers. We had like 6 little laptops, but the kids would just be stacked trying to look at these things, and there was just real excitement there. And eventually, what we found out was that it was kind of hard to do the classroom thing, to install computers in classrooms. One, you have to have somebody to maintain them, which means you have to train the teachers and you have to trust that the stuff you put in there is getting looked after properly. There's always the issue of security, people stealing them. It's very hard to keep them clean because, you know, they don't have glass windows, you know, in most of the places. It's very dusty. So the model that we sort of focused on was a computer training center where we take the equipment, put it into one place, and then we draw people into the center to train them. And that worked really well because we could have our own people there really looking after the equipment. And lots of people could go through very few machines. Lots of people could benefit from that. So that's the model that we basically landed on. So we went through about 3,000 students last year in the Computer Training Center. And that's awesome. I mean, you guys did that through donations of equipment and money. And that is absolutely huge for us. And last year, I asked for $13,000. That's what it takes to keep this whole thing running for a year. And DerbyCon came up with that. So DerbyCon made this happen last year. It's absolutely staggering. Also last year at DerbyCon, I introduced you to Henry. This is Henry, who's here. And we're going to talk more about Henry's story, but this was kind of his self-made bio as a result of being in that training center. The training center was designed to give people basic job skills like Word and Excel and stuff like that. And you can see there's a lot more than just Word and Excel. I mean, Henry came into this place and he wanted to learn absolutely everything that he could. But those of you that saw my talk last year remember some of these quotes from Henry. He loves working in the computer training center. He loves working with kids. But he talked about wanting to develop apps to change Africa, to really make a difference over there. He talked about he loves working with kids. He wants to teach them coding. He wants to teach them programming. And he says, I want to design robots and drones. This was a quote. I didn't ask him many questions about the drone thing. That was a touchy subject. I don't know if he wanted to blow stuff up or not, but who doesn't, right? But basically what this all pointed to, this pointed to something very different than the Computer Training Center. This pointed to a hackerspace. And Henry wasn't alone. As we started getting students going through the hackerspace, we realized that there were a lot of people that wanted more than just a basic job entering data. They really loved technology, but they didn't have anywhere to go. The largest university in Kampala, actually in most of East Africa, is Makerere University, and it is still possible to go through that university, get a high-level degree like a master's in technology and not touch a computer. That is still possible. You can take tracks through that program, get your degree, and not touch a computer. So this idea of giving people access to the technology who have the interest was very important. So last year, I basically said, you know, I need $6,000 to rent a place right next to the training center, hire a staff, Henry and one other guy, pay utilities and all that stuff. And last year, we raised that at DerbyCon. A donor specifically came forward and said, you're asking for this money for this thing. We're going to pay it so that you can run the hackerspace for a year. So what I'm going to talk about this year is almost entirely focused on the hackerspace. That's not all we do, but this year was huge for the hackerspace, and there's a lot to show. We're going to get into the other stuff that we do, and I don't want you to think that because I'm spending less time on the other stuff, it's less important. But an awful lot really happened in this past year with the hackerspace. Do you guys, is there, I should have asked this before, do you have audio? Is there an audio cable here?
Yeah, actually, they said
They're not supplying audio. We can go grab a speaker from our booth. Is that cool? Okay. All right. Well, okay. I can do this thing. I'll do this thing for right now. You want to grab it and then yeah. Okay. So this is, sorry that I have so many videos, and some of you have seen these. These are really short, but showing you the videos really helps capture the environment of sort of what the space is like, I think, a lot better than the photos. So this first video is the hackerspace opening. So we're in front of the Hackers for Charity Training Center, the CTC, and it's a pretty exciting day because we're getting ready to open our hackerspace, which is right next door. So this is the first time that we've opened it up and gone inside. We'll get better audio. I'll just narrate. So basically what you're looking at here is this is our security cage. We had to build a cage inside the hackerspace to keep most of our sensitive equipment secure. So this is a solid steel cage. I got this idea from a bank in the area. We had it locally crafted. The thing weighs about 250 pounds. And most of our gear we lock up inside there. We actually covered the whole thing with wood. This is the key that opens the hackerspace. I decided I got to bring some of this crap next year. I've never seen a key like that with all that, like 4 sides and all that stuff. It was really crazy. So this is the front door of the hackerspace. You can see there's another layer of security there. The entire place is caged in. That's normal for Uganda. Having bars on all the windows, having bars on all the doors. We do not. This is the street entrance. We do not use this. Basically, we curtained off the whole front wall, and students actually have to get in from the back. We don't want people walking into our hackerspace off the street and going, "Ooh, what's this? Look at all the shiny stuff." This is basically for invitation only, or for students that came through that have shown aptitude. But you can see it's a really nice open space. This back door, on the other side of this wall is the Computer Training Center, the CTC. This is a mirror image of that. And in the CTC, that's a bathroom. And when I rented the place, I didn't even think about checking to make sure that the bathroom was in there. I just assumed it was a mirror image. It was a safe. It was a microfinance company. They left their safe behind. And it was kind of funny because when we got in there and opened it up, we found that there was another safe inside the safe. It was the most ridiculous thing. So I still don't want to know what's in that safe. But is this guy good to go? I'll hook up okay, sweet. Yeah, let me turn it down because we'll probably blow you guys away. So next thing we did is we had to do some furnishing. One of the things that we absolutely loved was these chairs. We wanted to make it really fun. So, especially for kids that come in here. So, of course, the sliding chairs were a great idea. The bouncy chairs not only keep you awake and, help engage your core, which is kind of cool, but we found that they were just really maneuverable. We could move them around, and these were just made out of truck springs. So I saw one in a local shop, and somebody had used an old truck spring and made a chair out of it. And I was like, okay, that's super cool. We totally got to use that. So those are some of the chairs. Let me try to get I really want to get the audio working. See here. You have a gun.
Yeah, I know. Can you exit that? Can you exit that?
Yeah, I know, right? We'll get it work.
It's supposed to work.
Well, yeah, let's reboot it. Reboot the speakers. Yeah, it's not clicking when we put it in, so something like that. Is this just the sub?
That's just the sub sound.
Do we have lights?
And you have a light.
Okay.
So it's plugged in. The speakers are
I'll let you fiddle with it. Yeah. I'll let you fiddle with it while I keep going. Okay. All right. These are the chairs. Here, saw the chairs. Those are my kids, by the way. One of the themes that you're going to see as I go through here is that my kids and my family are involved a lot in this process because, well, we're the only ones, over there. So we do an awful lot. This is my son Declan working on a Visa mount for a Raspberry Pi. We've gotten lots of equipment through the years that you guys have donated that really didn't fit in the CTC. I mean, we had space for it, but it didn't fit the programs that we were doing over there. So one of the things that we had to do is we really had to start cataloging all of this stuff, using a barcode system and an engraver to put HFC on there because this is just a deterrent. But we found that it really works. The engraving electronics is a really big deterrent in Uganda to keep people from stealing if they get access to it. So basically everything had to be engraved. And we also got a display case. We also spent a lot of time with this display cabinet. The display case is just one of those things where people look at and they get real excited about different things. They get to see what sorts of things are available in the hackerspace. So we want it to look nice and contain good cross-section of some of the equipment that we've got. We finally got our banner hung up. This banner fit absolutely perfectly and also blocked some of the light that was coming in. So that's pretty cool. So we're still having fun. Thank you guys so much for everything. Now, once we started getting things in place, you saw our curtains there. You saw the furniture starting to come in. The security cages there. We're starting to get things marked. It's a very slow process, but we were just about to open, and the temperatures in Jinja spiked. It was summer, and the temperatures started getting above 100 degrees. And one of the things I wanted for the hackerspace is I wanted it to be closed, and that's primarily because of the dust. If you have windows open to get a cross breeze, you just get dust. And this is the inside. This picture on the bottom is the inside of one of our servers, and our guys do a pretty decent job of maintaining it, but you just can't stay on top of it, So we wanted the hackerspace to be completely closed up, but when we closed the doors in there, it was upwards of 120 degrees. You put a fan in there and, it's just you're blowing 120 degree air. So you're in there for like 3 minutes and you're like tapping out. You're like, I'm done. I'm out of here. So I hadn't planned on that. I hadn't budgeted for it at Derby. So I basically went I put a tweet out and I was like, we need $2,000 for an air conditioning. It's just no way around it. And the hacker community came forward and got us an air conditioner, which was really pretty amazing. That is a theme that just keeps happening. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this thing. And then we start to do this thing and it doesn't work and we need something else. And I get a little bit worried that people are just like, man, he just keeps asking for stuff. And the truth is that the community just steps up every time, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, we're going to help you. And that makes me incredibly proud because what's happened now this year is, I mean, we have a hacker space in Uganda. It's finally come full circle, and now it's, you know, stuff that hackers are excited about going on in Uganda, and you guys made that happen. So one of the next things that we wanted to do, one of the first classes that we wanted to do, is starting to teach robotics, because there were no existing robotics programs at all in the entire country. And the robotics system, the setup started with this little guy called Edison. So one thing I really wanted to do for a long time is get a robotics course bootstrapped here in Uganda, and I didn't really have too much of a background with robotics, and it was a little bit intimidating, the idea of just getting some kids started with it. So Meet Edison, the Edison robot was a great way to start, and we had our first classes. Declan's been helping out as an assistant instructor, and for our first pilot class, we're teaching Declan's class to sort of get a feel for how the class will go. And we've been really happy with it. The kids are super excited, and so far they seem to be having a pretty good time. And that's pretty typical. But on top of that, you have to get, when you buy more than one of these things for a classroom, you have to buy the STEM software, which is licensed from Lego, you know, and it just gets expensive really fast. This little Edison guy was a Kickstarter from a guy in Australia, and he basically saw that problem and was like, this is nuts, shouldn't be this much money. So he designed this little guy to be Lego compatible. It's Mindstorms with all the Mindstorms brick with all the sensors built into it already, and it comes with wheels that you can take out and put axles in instead, and fully Lego compatible. It comes in about $30. So I felt pretty good that we were able to actually give each kid a robot, you know. And with Edison, you basically start with barcodes, and you run him over a barcode to teach him. So the first day of a robotics class, the kids are actually doing stuff with their bot, which pulls them in really quickly. You don't have to get deep into coding and all that. And then as you move on, there's a drag and drop interface that lets you code Edison. It looks a lot like Scratch. So that was Meet Edison. So this is what we spent most of our time on last year. I left a bunch of things out, but getting that hackerspace stood up took me and my family almost the entire year. Okay? So that's what we got to show for it. That's not the end of the story, fortunately, because an interesting thing happens when hackers descend on a project. Lots of interesting things happen when hackers descend on projects, but one thing that really happened for us is things started moving. And the first person to show up, I think some of you guys might know, Khalil. So this thing with the audio, you know, Sam ran over and grabbed the speaker, and Khalil came over and, you know, fiddled with it and got it working, and these guys are helping over here doing this thing. That's like a snapshot of what I'm dealing with in Uganda. I'll be here trying to do this one thing, and it's just a snail's pace, you know, and I'm trying to do a little bit of everything, keep everything going. Then a couple of hackers come in, and it's just like, this crap's gonna work. We're gonna make this work. That happened over and over and over again when Khalil came over. You came right after Derby, didn't you? It was like the week after Derby. Okay, a few weeks after Derby. And he came with zero agenda. He's just like, I'm coming to Uganda. And I did not argue with that at all, because we got so many crazy things done. I mean, he came to the Keep and we sat down and he's like, why is your internet so slow? We had this whole discussion about why I couldn't make the internet faster and how it was really hard and really expensive. And he's like, well, no, it doesn't have to be. All you really got to do is this, this, and this. And I was like, well, I hadn't really thought of that. I don't think it'll work. But he's like, hell yeah, it's gonna work. And Khalil, it's like, we're gonna make this stuff work. He's like, Khalil, and sure enough, came up with this like solution that like sped up our internet. And he's like, done. What's next? And I was sitting in the living room screwing with a laptop trying to upgrade the memory, and he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, trying to upgrade the memory. It's not working. He's like, why is it not working? I told him about it. He's like, why don't you switch the chips, put them in different slots, take this one out, try it, see if it works. Sure enough, it worked. So things like that, where he would, just for him being around, just really got things moving. So while he was there, I knighted him. I thought he was. Yeah, this is not a beheading video. It's not. But one thing Khalil wanted to do, obviously he wanted to come and help, but for him it was a vacation too. And he's like, well, I really want to go on a safari. And I was like, okay, well, here's all the safari options, I was like, here's the cheapest one, that we can afford. And he's like, screw that, Khalil. I want to go to a good one. And so he picks the nicest place, and we're like, okay, this is what you do. We're going to get you a driver. He's like, no, you're not. You're coming. Well, you were coming. He's like, well, I'm paying for you to go on safari. I was like, really? It was like, I totally didn't count on that. So on safari with Khalil, there's the wild animal. Yeah. She's totally listening, dude. He spent some time in our leather shop. That is a funny face from Khalil. You will not see it very often. It is the face of failure. He took an attempt at making some leather journals in the workshop and realized quickly how hard it is. And
cherish them, people, because this is hard. Try to fulfill.
We spent a lot of time with Henry. Khalil was actually there when we signed Henry on officially as the leader in the hackerspace. So we had a lot of discussions about how that would work. And so basically, to me, Khalil kind of became this like superhero. It's a great picture. That's an awesome picture.
Because you took it.
I took it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just to me. I mean, even the staff in Uganda, Khalil kind of became legendary. He was just this kind of great personality that got along with everybody. And he got the ball rolling. After Khalil came, we had this guy, Lindsey Craig, came, and he worked with SparkFun for many years. So he came over and he taught our staff how to do all kinds of stuff. It was teacher training on how to teach Scratch. So he taught us all about Scratch. What else did he do? He taught us Scratch. I can't remember. He did some other stuff. Yeah. What was it? Okay. So that was really cool. Gave us the ability to teach those things. And then Jason Kent came over, and he basically, that is also the face of failure in the leather shop. He felt failure, but he had this. He brought this stitcher, which you can see on the bottom right. It was about a $1,500 stitching machine to help us stitch faster. Doesn't use any power. It's just hand crank, and brought this over. And this was the first thing we made, was a pair of sandals for him. And I was like, dude, another story where I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do a sandal. And he's like, oh, we're going to figure this out. And just sat down. He's tracing his foot on a piece of paper. And we did not Google. Like, we were just trying to really figure it out, and made a pretty decent pair of sandals there. So he really helped us out with the leather program, but he also came over and also helped with the internet situation that we had, helped us get some antennas up and running, troubleshooting them. He brought over a proxy server, an HTTP proxy, to sort of speed things up there, and configured it. And he also muled an awful lot of gear. So at this point, people were starting to donate stuff for the hackerspace that we didn't have an easy way to bring over, and he brought it in his luggage. So that was really huge. Regina is a friend of ours, has nothing to do with hackers. She's a relatively technical person and a geek, which is why we're friends. But she was like, hey, I want to just come over and see what I can do. And she braids hair at like the Renaissance Festival. So she was like braiding kids' hair, and helped us make waffles for our restaurant. And we had this big waffle party for everybody. And just, again, no agenda. Just, I'm going to come and I'm just going to see what's here. And, and it was awesome. And it keeps going. Belt came over. We're getting fairly recently at this point. Belt came over, and again, another example of, I don't really have an agenda, but I want to be Mega Mule. And he was. I mean, at this point, once we had the hackerspace, it was like, guys, we need robotics gear, you know, we need Lego stuff. The hacker community donated a 3D printer, the Ultimaker 2. So, you know, this was, at this time, this was the first 3D printer that was available for any kind of public use in the country. The rest of them were locked in places like McCrary University, and very few people could even see them, let alone touch them. Brandon came over right around this time also. In fact, Belt and Brandon were both here in Uganda at the same time, which was really kind of, you know, if it's in a good way. You know, if it's cool for me to have one hacker over there, having two, there was just like this resonant amplification effect where it was just, stuff was just going absolutely crazy, and it really changed the environment. We got a little bit nerdy and more geeky than we probably would have if you guys had come separately. They brought a bunch of Raspberry Pis that Milton Security donated, and a bunch of other robotics gear. He muled a lot of stuff for us as well. And his family was just absolutely awesome. We had a lot of fun with them. And then friends of ours, Tim and Dwight and Joanna, came over in January, and they wanted to basically interview our staff and hear the story of HFC and see it for themselves. That was something that Khalil wanted to do as well, was basically be able to tell what's going on there from another perspective. So that was really cool. And then last but not least, it's not even last yet, we got more people. These two ladies came over from Canada, had absolutely no agenda at all in Uganda, just wanted to come over, these school teachers, and found us. It was completely random. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. And then the sponsors of the hackerspace last year, BTI 360, the wives of the company decided to come on a girls' trip and visit the hackerspace and just showed up. Really, really pretty amazing. So because of all that happening, things now started happening very quickly. We had more equipment. We started playing around with the Make It robotics kits and the Make Blocks kits. We started doing Raspberry Pi training. I started with Declan's class as a test, and we're teaching Raspberry Pi. So now we've got Linux, we've got robots, we've got 3D printing. I mean, really cool stuff happening at this point. This is a fun little video. This is the kind of the unboxing of the Ultimate. Our setup was a lot of fun. It was pretty straightforward. The instructions that came with the Ultimaker were super easy to follow, and we didn't really have too many problems as we set things up. We took our time, and we're super careful with everything that we did. So obviously it's hard for us to get spare parts and things like that, so we didn't want to break anything. We spent a lot of time reading the instructions, and then we'd get excited about stuff and kind of lurch ahead and then go back to the instructions. And so we had a lot of RTFM moments. But man, when that light came on and the box just glowed, it was just the coolest thing. You can see in a lot of these shots, I'm spending an awful lot of time like looking inside this thing just in absolute awe. And we got to the point where at one spot in the setup, we just kind of stopped with this glowing box and just totally geeked out.
After the bridge, we can do some adjustments. We're not going to do that. Okay?
No.
You needed to take it off.
We need that noise amplified louder through the whole hackerspace through the speakers.
Microphone?
Like record it.
We can use the bits.
Totally the same thing. First little bit project. Amplify this sound. It's the coolest sound ever coming out of that thing. Great.
That's brilliant.
Wow. I want to put my head in. I'm just so excited. It sounds so good.
I don't think I know what I'm
putting close. So you guys know my how stupid we are.
It was nice.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. When you rotate this left,
This is my favorite.
So
When you rotate the button until the nozzle is a millimeter away. Just the plate a millimeter.
Oh, we're gonna
build it a millimeter. Like level it.
Yeah.
Plate level. first print came to life, this was our test print, it was just... So this is just like magic at this point. That's the thing started working, and that was amazing. And that's the like geek hacker nerd spirit that comes out. I can't do it when I'm sitting there by myself. I can't do it around my wife. She just doesn't get it, and gives me funny looks. And now there's a jar I gotta put money in every time I make a nerd joke or make a fun. It's pretty bad. So that was the unboxing, and then this is sort of a video that shows one of the street a group of street girls that we're teaching, and we're showing it to them for the first time. And you'll see in the back we have the teachers from Canada that came in to visit us, and this is the first time they had seen it. They live in Canada. That's not saying anything bad about Canada. I was very careful there. Right. So the other thing that we had was we got little bits brought over, and the little bits, we went through a highly scientific testing of these devices. Attack all the things. That was a very short video, but we spent a solid 3 hours in testing with the cats. Manifestations of this. But we did actually turn this into an actually useful device in the education of children. So here you go. So we've been playing with little bits for a while. And so this is basically what these are. These are just tiny little modular devices that connect to different power sources. So each one, you have inputs, you have sensors, and you have outputs. You have power, you have input, you have output, and they all go together kind of with magnets, and you can't put them together wrong. So you can basically prototype something just by snapping these little things together and build some pretty incredible things. So this, now eventually we got out of the prototyping phase, and this is where we start. We're working with our kids at this point. The street kids, the sanctuary, and Jinja Connection. So we were excited to do our first class for former street kids while Brandon and his family were over. And the response was really pretty incredible. I mean, we really enjoyed having the kids in, and they really had a good time. Their faces just lit up when they started playing with these things. This was one of my favorite exercises. The kids really enjoyed playing with the infrared, the remotes. To a lot of them, they understood what remotes were, but it was kind of magic, this invisible light, and actually seeing it in action was really fun for the kids. They had a lot of fun with this. Show me where the sensor is. Which one is the sensor? Good. And where's your output? Good. Well done. Nice. And that was exciting for me because they actually understood the terms. Input and output and sensors, and this is the Frank Handshake project. The kids also got a chance to play around with the space kit. In this one, they're making prisms, playing around with the CD. I'm really excited about this class, and it was really cool to see the kids just jump right in and engage. I'm amazed at how brilliant these kids are. Yeah, so just to give you some background, these are former street kids. I mean, these are the troublemakers. These are the kids with less than zero chance of really making it, because a lot of them prefer to live on the streets because it's profitable for them. We live in a tourist town. So not only do they have a hard life, but they found that they have this niche that they can stay in kind of forever that will pay for their food and get them new clothes, and there's no incentive to break the cycle for most of them because it's an okay life in a tourist town. This gave them something to be excited about that was beyond just going through each day. And these kids were super smart. We did girls. We worked with girls and boys. This is the girls class, and I wanted to show you a drawbot that one of the girls made. Nicely done. Yeah. Now, you see sort of, this is prototyping using all kinds of different things. One of the things that ended up happening was, I mentioned the two girls that came from Canada. They literally showed up in Uganda. They're like, we're going to spend 2-3 months, something like that, in Uganda just trying to work with some kids. And they came and they found out about our hackerspace. We'll talk to Henry a little bit more about this. But the bottom line was they found our hackerspace and they're like, can we come in and teach classes? I was like, yeah, of course. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to work with the street kids. So it was like a 2 or 3 week program. We went from kids who had never touched computers, who had never played with Legos, right? A lot of these kids hadn't ever touched computers and they never played with Legos, so they didn't get the engineering and the mechanical, smarts that comes along with playing with Legos even. And within 3 weeks, we have them in an international robotics competition, and they're on Skype with kids in Canada having a build party building robots to solve challenges. And this is some of the footage from the different stations that we set up to really bootstrap a robotics camp. So you'll see them playing with all the different components to learn these skills. So at this point, we were just laying the basic foundation for robotics training. The next step was to actually get them a step higher and get them into the mindstorms, because that was the component of the kids in Canada was going to do all the mindstorms. So after all of this training, they were able to move in and actually start playing with mindstorms.
Well done.
I mean, a kid that's never built a minifig, like, to me, that's tragic. Like, we're totally missing out. So that's kind of the hackerspace in action with a bunch of the classes going on there. There's a little spot at the end here I want to show you. It's really kind of fun.
Okay, so that's our first one. That was a very easy one. And so now we turn it off. Oh, so now we gotta untangle all this. Okay, and then we take it all apart. That's still on, right? Okay, so let's untangle it. Yeah, so let's put our feather.
The girls just thought that was the funniest thing. This is like So here they are in the closet with the lights off. You just set it up with a sound sensor and plugged the little thing in. It couldn't have been simpler, but we really loved it. Henry comes in. Hacker, right? So this is what it looks like, and then this little clip is actually the boys' side. This is the boys interacting with the kids in Canada over Skype.
That's a cool one. Yeah.
Just some other photos here, and then this is the final project that they worked on together, the most advanced project that they built after this very short video. So this basically put together all the skills together. So you've got advanced building, you've got advanced programming, engineering. There's a lot of math that went into it. You have collaboration, international collaboration across distances, so setting up machines so that they could talk to the students. And again, this came from a lot of them having zero computer experience, zero build/make experience, and in a process of less than a month with just a pair of teachers from Canada. Yeah, we can give you all details. Yeah, so super cool. Now, one thing I wanted to do is I'd like to bring Henry up for a short while, if that's okay. So let's give him a warm.
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the things I was just going to do is you guys will get a chance to do some Q&A after the talk, but I thought I'd just lead with just a couple questions to sort of get things going. First thing I'd love for you to talk about is if you could just tell them briefly a little bit about how we met. The story about you coming up to me was pretty killer, so I'd love to hear that.
All right. Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you so much. Dave and all the team and all the community for having me here. And you guys have treated me so good, and everybody that comes to me, thank you so much. And thank you. So this is how I met Johnny. I was always interested in hacking, the whole idea and how everything works. So I tried to make the story brief, but one time I was, we call it the main street. It's like the highway in Ginger, and I saw Johnny's car and it had Hackers for Charity. So that raised a lot of questions. This is in Uganda and in Ginger. So I started doing a lot of research and I Googled everything about him. So I read a lot about him, and then I tried so much to try to find his truck again, trying to find that car that had the stickers that said Hackers for Charity. So one time I was coming out of a restaurant. It's on Main Street, and I saw the car. It had the stick on it. So I waited. I stayed along opposite the street waiting until when, the owner of this car would come out.
In the US, we call that stalking.
Okay, so I stalked him. So,
Not the first time.
so he comes out. He was just living with his family. He had just finished having lunch, I think. And I went to him as he was starting the engine, and I'm like, "Hey, I need to talk to you." He showed me this face, surprise, and well, I'm Henry, and social engineering. And I read about you. I know a lot about you, and I would like to help. How would I join Hackers for Charity? Well, he was like, I'm really busy right now, but I can't talk to you right now, but he gave me his business card. Here, keep in touch. I was like, okay. So the first thing I did is send him an email. I'm like, hey, what can I do? How can I help you? Hackers for Charity is here, is in Ginger, and I read a lot about you. I would like to learn a lot from you and see how I can get involved.
So at this point, he passed the first test, right? Because I have so many people coming up to me on the street. It's like the emails. Can you teach me how to hack? Right? We got to have some sort of screening process. Part of my screening process is, let's see how serious this person is that's coming up to me. So that's why because I didn't know this guy, and he had the crazy dreads. So that he passed the first test at that point. So that was a good start.
Yeah, so I kept bothering Johnny a lot. All the coffee shops everywhere. And until when they were opening up this Hackers for Charity computer training center, and he welcomed me to come and check it out, and finally I got to get in and start volunteering. So that's how I got to meet Johnny and started working with Hackers for Charity.
Now he uses the word work, but really what he did is he came in and volunteered, and I've told this story many times, but it's typical for people to ask for jobs. It's typical for people to ask for money or a handout or something. Henry wasn't asking for anything except to be in the space. Like, he just wanted to be in this environment and learn, and that's what he did. And it went from learning everything that was in there and coming to me and being like, I need more, and we try to give him more stuff, to teaching other people that would come in. And you were a volunteer for
about 3-4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. You can imagine that. Because, budgets being what they are and everything, not having a lot of money, and this thing slowly starting, this guy spent 3-4 years of his life just as a volunteer. And that's part of the reason that you're here, is because of that sacrifice. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
One more question, just briefly, talk about the teachers from Canada. Like, that whole thing happened, and you just came to me and you're like, these teachers found me, they want to do a class. But like, how did that go down? Like,
all right. So I've worked a lot with Canadians. I used to volunteer with another organization called Give International. So I had met one of them before. So they sort of knew I was into computers. But when they came this time, they were doing something different. So they just wanted an update on what I was doing and what was going on. So then they come down to, someone brought them to the hackspace. And when they came, they were like shocked and surprised about what was in there and everything going on. I gave them the full story of what we're doing and what we intend on doing. And they were like, can we help? And what can we do? I told them about the robotics that we're doing and training. And at that point, we had not reached that level that you saw. But they said, okay, so one of them is a robotics teacher, is involved in robotics in Canada. So she was like, okay, let's see how we can link these, the Ugandan kids and the Canadian kids, and we get them to do a challenge, sort of show and learn. And so we had to prepare, like every evening we had to come in and do a lot of work and prepare things and make sure that everything happens. As Johnny showed you, it wasn't easy having to do all of that stuff in 1 month, but we had to do a lot of work, like stay up late and make it happen. So that's how it came together.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Henry. So what we'll do is we'll do some Q&A after the talk. One of the questions, I'm going to load a question for the audience about your work with street kids to get things going. So we'll get to that. Thanks. So thanks, Henry. So that is basically the Uganda side. One thing that I want to talk about briefly here is the other projects that we've been working on. You guys know that we've been working with Raspberry Pis and Pelicans, and before I bring Sam up to really talk, he's the one that's done most of the work on this. I just want to give you some background. This model that we have with this training center is limited, right? I mean, we can only have so many seats, we can only get so many people in there, but the computer classroom model is broken for us. Like, we just can't support that, and it doesn't work. It works for other organizations with deep pockets and lots of people on the ground. So, but we needed a compromise. How do we get more people trained how do we find the kids that are in the schools that have an aptitude maybe to do this robotic stuff, for example, find them, get them into the center, go through the center, and then go into the hackerspace. Like, how does that work? And what we do is we basically use the Raspberry Pis as a very small access point to put content in schools, to provide a library. Now, you get books, you get Wikipedia, you get Khan Academy, like you get all this stuff that's great for a school, but you also get computer training material through the Goodwill Foundation. So you can learn about, PowerPoint and Excel and Word and all that stuff. So all this stuff basically starts to bubble up people that have an interest in following a tech track that eventually can make their way into the training center to actually act on that. And so it's a very lightweight way to help schools and to help, Ugandans and all that without having a deep investment fail in a huge computer lab. So this project has been very near and dear to my heart because it really does help us expand very quickly and help an awful lot of people. So Sam, if you want to come up and talk a little bit about sort of the evolution and where we are, that'd be great. Everybody give him a hand. This is Sam. You guys
So many of you have followed the work that we've been doing with the Rugged Pi, as we called it. The education page on the HFC website talks a lot about it. You guys understand that he just briefly talked about the educational software that was on it. One thing we found, though, once we started deploying them, and there's about a dozen of them deployed around the world, is that they're not really long-term reliable, I guess you could say. So they're a great maker project, but when you put it in the hands of somebody who can't really fix it when a wire comes loose, and then they have to call Johnny, and Johnny has to drive 2 hours, and then he has to walk for 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour, and then he has to take a bus, to fix a loose wire, it becomes very burdensome in some ways, right? Because he can't just do this for all the different projects spread throughout the world. So we've tried to, in the last couple of years, partnering with World Possible, another organization that was the impetus for the Rachel software that we utilize heavily now, is that we wanted a project that would be reliable and robust and something that could be user field serviceable. Through contacts with Intel Education Arm, we came up with the Content Access Point. The Content Access Point is the new Rugged Pi. It's not as rugged yet. We're still working with the actual manufacturer to make it more rugged, dust and water resistant. And what's nice about it is it's 500 gig hard drive. So it quadruples, if not 5 times the capacity of our current storage space. It's gigabit Ethernet, USB 3.0, which we'll talk about in a second, and it's got a 6-hour battery. So we lose a little bit of battery life because the original one had about 24. But what we found was that's plenty of time for a school and an environment where the teacher can actually teach from it without having any access to power, and then they can take it home and charge it at night where they usually have reliable power. The USB is kind of interesting because field serviceability was one of those issues. So what's nice about it is a person is given a USB when they buy a cap. The USB has on the recovery image not all the data that's on there, like all the educational data, but actually there's software, the source OS. They plug in the USB, they turn it on, it recovers the whole device by reflashing it back to factory defaults. So if they screw something up or something happens to the device, they can reset it back to factory with no problem. All their data is still stored there. Everything's back to normal. And that's it. That's as easy as it gets. It's one piece as well, whereas the original Pi had 4 different circuit boards. The new one's 1, right? And the new one also has a 2.5-inch drive, which can be easily replaced with solid state or something more robust. It's easy to see from deployment's perspective that this type of thing makes sense overseas, but we never found a good way to handle it in the States. On top of that, we had an issue with large donors or even small donors who said, hey, I have 10 laptops, I have 100 laptops, I'd like to donate them to you, can you use them? And for us, it made sense originally because we were like, oh yeah, we could ship them overseas. And then the first time we did that, customs and duties took our bank account down, and we almost decided to leave stuff there because it didn't make sense. It was so expensive to push it over there, and it actually took a lot of manpower. So what we did for I guess the last 3 years is said no. And we struggled with that. We wanted to find a solution that made sense. So we have big business in the States, we have problems in the States with organizations that really could use it, but we didn't know how to vet it. And that was another issue. The volunteer network was our attempt to try to do that a couple years ago. last year, we had an opportunity to work with a shelter. The shelter is downtown Louisville. It focuses on abusive situations. So it takes in folks who are in abusive situations and tries to help them, protect them, provide them service and support. They're treated as clients, and it's a really great program. What we did for them was we did train the trainer. We tried to, we didn't want to talk to the clients so much because we didn't feel like we were experienced and ready to do that. We don't have training in that field. What made sense to us, though, is we can teach cybersecurity. We can teach cyber safety. We can talk to the actual trainers and the call center folks, the staff, and help them understand techniques that they can pass on to the clients, and then the clients can actually use to help themselves, protect themselves from that abusive person. And that worked really well. It was a great course. We had a lot of volunteers for HFC and from you guys that came over there with us. I think there's probably 8 to 10 folks. This year we tried something different. We wanted to capture the moment of how do we incorporate hardware. And what you see here is the Hotel Louisville. Sounds benign, but it's an amazing project. This hotel is fully staffed by homeless or previously homeless folks. Multiple floors. You can go and actually stay there for relatively cheap as well if you wanted to stay there. They have floors designated for regular folks to come and stay. And they have floors designated for folks that are going through drug and alcohol rehab. Family, homeless folks, family, whether it's a homeless person or their families can come stay there. You can get education. As long as you're fully, they'll work with you to get Pell Grants for free. You can stay in the hotel for free. You can eat there for free. You volunteer 16 hours a week. We felt it was a great project, a very inspiring project, but how could we benefit them? They already have relationships with the University of Louisville as well as other 13 colleges in the Louisville area, and we're like, okay, so what else do you have? Well, we have an internet cafe. An internet cafe is handled by University of Louisville folks. We're like, okay, well, that's cool. Guess we can't help there. So what can we do next? Well, they said, well, a big part of the problem after we talked to them, their needs were, I don't have a solution for education. I don't have a way to help these folks get a job except for talking to them and helping them write their resume. Well, we have resume software. We have software on the actual computer, the Goodwill Foundation stuff that Johnny talked about, that shows you how to sit in an interview, how to write the actual resume that makes sense for folks that are looking to hire you, how to do the basic job skills, like how to use Microsoft Word, how to use a computer. One guy we talked to, it was 2 days ago, his name was Rob. He said that he almost committed suicide because he couldn't even apply for a job at Walmart because he had no idea how a computer worked. And Walmart has online applications now. You have to sit in front of a computer and use it. And he says, I don't know how to use it. I don't know what I'm doing. And he's working there now, going through programs to try to help him with that, with his other issues. But he wants to get a job. He wants to work. How do you do that? And so what we're doing now is we gave them yesterday a content access point, fully loaded. This one actually is broadcasting right now. If you want to check out the software that's on it, it's HFC Tech Rachel. It is 220 gigs worth of content, all of Khan Academy, all of Wikipedia as of July of this year, Goodwill Foundation content, basic job skills, CK12 Foundation, which is K through 12th grade textbooks with teacher's manuals. The Edison content that we teach from the robotics stuff is all the lesson plans, all the worksheets are on there. It goes on and on and on. And this is where we're going with it. So we said, okay, that's awesome. Now we can provide them with this and laptops, which provides a way forward for these type of organizations. Well, how do you further, we talked about, we have these laptop donations that people want to give us. What do we do? The next step was, well, let's try, because we're not really keen on how do we vet them. Let's give the actual organization, the mission, the laptops. Let them give them to these folks when they start the job skills training program, which is a 6-month-long program. They get to use the laptop while they're there. And then if they graduate, which the mission decides how, if they graduate, they get to keep the laptop. They gain benefit, they gain usefulness. They probably won't pawn it this time because now it shows itself to be something they can use. And that's where we're at. That's where we want to go. Did you want to talk about the direction following all this?
Okay, thank you. So basically what we're looking to do is start up regional groups within the US or all over the world where we can finally use volunteers to do HFC projects. Now I say HFC projects because we want to use the resources that we have as a community to just help you do what you're going to do. But the idea is if there's something in your area and you see a place that's doing good work that needs some help, you basically can just send an email and say, hey, well, I'd like to help this group. And what we want to do is we just want to try to get equipment to you. Just put it's going to be very simple in the beginning. We're just going to tweet, hey, anybody can get laptops to this area. And we're going to try to find some regional coordinators eventually that can say, hey, I'll stand up and I'll be the person in Louisville that can, be a central point to do these types of projects. So basically it gives us a way to use laptops and hardware like that. Maybe networking stuff eventually. It gives us a way to let volunteers get involved to do work and also to use our experience in job skill training and, helping schools and all of that and bring it all together so that people can get involved directly where they are. We tried to do it hot and heavy with the volunteer network before and the software was too complex. This is a lot simpler. We don't need a regional coordinator right away, but, that'll help eventually. So if you're interested in that, that's the direction that we're going. So we have a way to use equipment. We have opportunities for volunteers, especially in the U.S., and basically a chance to help local charities in need very simply, especially with all this old gear that you guys have. Now, in closing, we have to reboot again because last year we got the training center funded and we got the hackerspace funded and it was funded for a year. So we're still very much looking for corporate donors to help us pay for those, to pay for those two great places. And this is basically the price tag. This is everything. So $13,000 for the operation of the CTC. Remember, we're going through around 3,000 students a year. We can probably do more than that. And $6,000 to run the hackerspace for a year. That's basically what we need. I'm actually over time. Here's the links that we have. We're absolutely thrilled with what's happened at DerbyCon. It's been absolutely magic. You guys have made some amazing things. All this stuff that's happening is because of you. Whether you bought a t-shirt or donated equipment or actually came over, all of that is because of what you guys have done. So I'm incredibly thankful and blessed to you guys. And last but not least, Khalil had been talking about his trip an awful lot, and some of you read his blog. But this quote really hit me about coming to Uganda. If you're thinking about it, he says, "If at this point you're thinking, what can I do? Let me tell you, come to Uganda. Why? Because Johnny said in his latest blog post, just being around hackers helps him stay in touch with the hacker point of view. Just discussing problems with other hackers becomes part of the solution. You will love it here. It can be a family vacation, a soul rejuvenating trip, a life-changing experience, or all of it at once." We still have a need for folks in Uganda. We live in a great vacation destination, and it amplifies all the work that we do. So if you're thinking about it, obviously, please just let us know. But again, thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts. We have the silent auction is getting ready to finish up. So if you have questions, especially for Henry, I'm going to keep him at the silent auction so you can actually ask him questions. So he's not going to be moving around the conference trying to see every talk for the next hour and a half. Okay. All right. But again, thank you guys so much.